The teller. The teller. The teller.
It's another day, left jab, right jab, this is MMA. Mixed martial arts, quick body parts, undefeated when I pick 'em. Who the champ, who the victim, looking in my crystal ball, I predict the winner. Never stop fighting, if you lose, keep your chin up. Know how the game go, I'm a smart fella. Welcome to the show, this the MMA fortune teller.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller. The teller. The teller.
What is up, guys? UFC Fight Night, Derrick Lewis versus Alexey Oleinik. You guys know this was a fight that I was calling for quite some time. You know, ever since we had MMA Live Discussion episode 2 where I had Alexey Oleinik on the show, I was asking him his thoughts on this matchup. I thought this was the match to make, and luckily enough, some of the matchmakers also agreed with me on that. So this is the fight that we got going down right now, taking place this upcoming Saturday. I'm currently filming this right now Monday morning. Excuse me if you hear any rumbling in the background or any rain noises. Currently over here in South Florida, Monday morning, this is the most I've seen from this hurricane that we were supposed to have this past weekend. I didn't see anything. I was at the beach. I was, body surfing with the waves and whatnot. It was actually pretty nice. The sun came in and out. And the most I've seen from this storm over here is right now. We've had some rainstorms come through and whatnot. So excuse me if you guys hear some background noise. I tried to raise the suppression on the microphone so you guys don't hear that. And we got another fight card coming at you guys this upcoming Saturday. Like I said, man, I'm excited for this main event. And you guys know the routine. We before we get into UFC Fight Night Lewis versus Oleinik, we got to take a look back at the previous card that we just had this past Saturday. And that was Derrick Brunson taking on Edmen Shahbazyan. And we're going to start our way at the bottom of the card, and we'll work our way up to the top. And first and foremost, we had Chris Gutierrez and Cody Durden. Thought that guy Cody looked to be pretty solid. Like I said, man, he was going to show up to fight. But at the end of the day, I did take Chris Gutierrez. I thought Chris did enough to win the fight. Cody Durden controlled that first round, controlled Chris Gutierrez taking his back and whatnot. But, I thought Gutierrez did enough to win the fight, really took over the last 2 rounds. But the dude Cody was a tough dude. Jamal Emmers, he had a short notice replacement opponent in Vince Cachero, and he pretty much just absolutely dominated him. Nate Maness, I had Nate Maness to win that fight, even with the late replacement Johnny Munoz, who a lot of people were high on. A lot of people were picking Johnny Munoz. He was just hanging on, trying to get Nate down to the ground. It was not enough. I thought Nate definitely deserved to win that fight. There was also that point deduction. Jonathan Martinez took Frankie Saenz out. We did see, in the first round that Frankie, was threatening with the wrestling and whatnot, but he's up there in age. It was a bad matchup for him. Jonathan Martinez came in heavy. Frankie Saenz had so many things going against him, the poor guy. Probably won't be seeing him fight in the UFC again, so shout out to Frankie Saenz, who had a hell of a career. I had Bobby Green to win this fight, man. Bobby Green showed up. I told a lot of you guys, and by the way, I basically had a perfect card going into the co-main event fight, but I picked Bobby Green to win this fight. Not a lot of people did. A lot of people were on Lando. I thought Bobby had a really good shot at winning the fight, and with where the line was, the value was definitely on Bobby Green, and I had Bobby Green to win that fight. He came through. Vicente Luque, one of my major plays on the night. Vicente came through. I thought he was going to be way too professional out there, way too polished for Randy Brown. Vincent Luque is brushing shoulders with guys like Burns. He's been training with some of the top coaches in the game and top fighters in the game for a long time, and you see the difference. Randy Brown's an athlete, but there's a different level of fighting between these two guys. So shout out to Vicente Luque for coming through. Jennifer Maia, I said I picked Joanne Calderwood to win this fight. I thought it would play out closely. For those of you guys that have been following me all throughout fight week, I said Jennifer Maia looked to be in great shape. I thought this fight was going to play out closely. Jennifer Maia went out there, snatched up the armbar. And then in the main event, oh man, Derrick Brunson, all of a sudden this guy, his career is just rejuvenated. He looks like a whole different type of fighter. He's patient in there. His chin is doing better. I thought Edmen Shahbazyan was going to smoke him, and that was not the case. Edmen Shahbazyan, he dropped the ball there, man. He'll be back. He's young, and I know he spoiled a lot of people's event. You know, I had some money on him, and it was tough, man. I know a lot of people had him mixed in parlays and whatnot too, so he really dropped the ball for a lot of people. You know, I was able to grab Edmund at a lower line too. I grabbed him nice and early, right around minus 300. Still didn't matter. An L is an L, but I know a lot of people had Edmund, and I was really surprised, man. It's the fight game. Things happen. And ended up winning one of my 2 bets. Lost the Edmund bet and won the Vicente Luque fight, Vicente Luque bet. So, you know, that was that. And now we move on to the next card. We got, like I said, Alexey Oleinik taking on Derrick Lewis. And we take a look at the lines here. And it's some pretty good fights, you know. The UFC's been delivering, man. A lot of exciting matchups. Not always the biggest of names, but, you know, these cards are still coming through every time, and they're very entertaining. And, you know, the first fight that we got, we're going to jump into, is Ali Al-Qaisi taking on Irwin Rivera, taking place in the bantamweight division. We got this guy Ali fighting out of Jordan, the royal fighter, 29 years old. Really not overly impressed from what I've seen from him. Not really overly impressed with Irwin Rivera either. I mean, he's a tough dude. Take a look at Irwin Rivera here. 9-5. 31 years old, you know, pretty much in the prime of his career. Says that he's still affiliated with the Black Zillions. You know, that camp, I don't think it's together anymore, so it's kind of interesting. But, you know, coming off that loss to Giga Chikazi, who's going to be fighting up here soon, so keep an eye on Giga. Very talented kickboxer. He was too much for him. You know, when they fought, I believe he might have been taking that fight on short notice too, Irwin. I forget exactly if that was a short notice fight, but Giga is on another level, man, when it comes to the striking. So, you know, he really did give him a tough matchup. Irwin was tough though. Irwin, you know, he was looking good in the beginning of that fight, but as the fight transpired, you know, as I said, Giga was a little too much for him, but Giga is a very talented fighter, so maybe don't look too much into that. You know, we take a look at Ali over here. Not impressed at all for what I've been seeing from him on the feet, as far as with his training and whatnot. But this guy, he's a tough grappler. You know, he'll go in there, he'll try to submit you. So, you know, this isn't the type of guy maybe you want to look into, you know, to his striking too much. Maybe he wants to try to work his grappling here. But like I said, not overly impressed with him. Take a look at him over here. This is the matchup. An interesting looking dude, this guy over here. And take a look at what he's been doing so far with his career. 8-3, 29 years old. You know, a lot of decision victories. You know, pulling off a couple subs here and there. Like I said, you know, it seems his bread and butter is more his grappling. But I don't really know how high level his grappling is. It doesn't look to be that high to me. And Irwin Rivera, like I said, a tough guy who does train with some solid guys. It's not the Black Zillions, but he's probably training over there with Hard Knocks 365 and a lot of those guys. And I remember, I think during his last fight, you know, a lot of those guys were showing love to him, even though he took that loss. A lot of top level fighters. And the line is minus 200 for Irwin. I do edge him to win the fight, but that's a pretty high line. I expect Irwin to probably be just a better overall fighter. Probably better on the feet from what I've seen on tape, you know, better striking and whatnot. And I'm going to pick Irwin Rivera to win the fight. That's probably how most people are. But, you know, I don't necessarily see Irwin Rivera being much of a showstopper moving down the line. I think he's just an overall solid fighter. I think he's a tough dude. And, you know, you see he had a match over here against Matt Waggy. He took Matt Waggy out with a liver kick. Matt Waggy is a guy, I used to sit in the sauna with him before this whole pandemic all the time over here at LA Fitness. This guy was always over there. Very tough dude. So, you know, that's a solid victory. Matt Waggy was, you know, on the verge of making the UFC. He was on the verge of getting a shot, I believe, on Dana White's Contender Series. Had a couple setbacks, but keep an eye on Matt Waggy. Very tough dude. So that was a solid victory for him. But, you know, a lot of L's on the resume here too. So, but a guy that delivers, you know. He really was, you know, trying to bring the fight to Giga, or Giga, however you want to pronounce that first name, Chikazi, who's a very talented striker. All right. We'll go with Rivera to win the fight. All right, sliding over to our next fight. We got a guy who really looked pretty impressive in his last fight. Youssef Zalal taking on Peter Barrett. Do you guys remember Slippery Pete? This was the guy that made his debut on Dana White's Contender Series. He was fighting out of Boston, or you know, the Boston area, the New England area, and had a pretty cool story. I forget the exact details. I don't want to speak out of terms, but I believe he did have some type of issue going on with him. I don't know if it was drugs or some type of family issue, but you know, the guy had a pretty bold story, and you know, he found fighting, and he's really been going hard with it. I forget the exact story behind him. You know, I've reached out to him on Instagram, commented. He's a cool dude. He comments back and whatnot. Seems like a very interesting dude. He seems to me to be the type of guy that's not necessarily the most physically talented. He's not the most, you know, athletic, talented dude, but this is a guy that's really grinding and pushing forward, and he really wants to make a name for himself. So do not sleep on a guy like that. You know, guys that are really set out on a mission, be careful. And this guy, Slippery Pete, that's what he brings to the table, in my opinion. You know, on the Dana White's Contender Series fight, he was in some trouble, you know, in that fight here and there. You know, but it was really grinding and pushing forward in that fight, and you know, ended up pulling off the victory. He's 11-3. And 33 years old, so you know, doesn't have a lot of time. You know, he's not here to be patient. This guy's grinding. Here's the, you know, this is his time now. He needs to get this victory against Youssef Zalal. You know, otherwise, you know, like I said, doesn't have a lot of time. Youssef Zalal is absolutely no slouch. We saw what he just brought to the table in his last fight against a guy in Jordan Griffin, who's a seasoned, crafty veteran in the game. And you know, that was a close fight, but he definitely did enough to win the fight. He looked good in that fight. He has good striking. He has underrated grappling, in my opinion. Very well-rounded. And I think he's starting to put it together here. He's on a 3-fight winning streak right now. You see him here. He was going to war with Griffin. He was really bringing it. He was putting the pushing the pace on Griffin. The striking was a little bit more seasoned, more polished. He was looking better on the feet. And like I said, a very well-rounded fighter. I was actually pretty impressed with Zalal. Take a look at Slippery Pete over here. You know, just working up a sweat. This guy really brings it, man. This guy really brings it. I'm telling you guys. But you know, the line is high on Zalal, and I think the line is high for a reason. I think he's the more talented fighter. And it's probably it's pretty hard not to pick Zalal here. I'll be rooting for Slippery Pete big time, but I think he probably will be a little bit outmatched, in my opinion. I mean, Youssef Zalal's all the way up to -350 right now. I'm not sure how I really feel about that line. You know, I think it could be a little bit closer. Like I said, this guy Slippery Pete, he's a grinder, and you know, he's the type of dude he's a well-rounded guy that just has a lot of heart. He has a lot of heart, so don't expect him to go in there and lay down. He's going to be, you know, trying to walk forward. He's going to be trying to take out Zalal this entire fight, but I just think that he's a little bit outgunned here. No matter where the fight goes, I think he's a little bit outgunned. That's kind of what I see here. So, you know, Youssef Zalal has to be the pick. I think everyone's going to be going with him there. You know, if you're picking Slippery Pete, let it be known. All right. Very interesting fight here coming up next. Justin Jaynes taking on Gavin Tucker. Justin Jaynes coming off a very impressive victory over Frank Camacho. You know, Justin Jaynes came into that fight as the dog, right? He was the underdog, was not supposed to really do anything in that fight. He was supposed to lay down. Actually, Frank Camacho was a heavy favorite in that fight. If I remember, he was up in the -300s. I remember he messed up a bunch of your guys' parlays. I remember you guys saying in the fight companion. So, I mean, Frank Camacho, a very talented striker. Justin Jaynes goes out there, drops him on the feet, hurts him. Basically did everything but completely put him out on conscience. I mean, Frank Camacho didn't know where he was, but Gavin Tucker, on the other hand, Gavin Tucker is a guy that I was really, really high on. And I think a lot of you guys were really high on him too, man, after his victory over Sam Sicilia. For those of you guys that remember Sam Sicilia, this guy was a heavy hitter, a guy that was sleeping dudes left and right, came from the Ultimate Fighter show. Now he's over there with Bellator, but a guy that was very skilled. And, you know, that fight did not play out good for Sam Sicilia at all. Gavin Tucker, not only did he go out there and take out Sam Sicilia, but he went out there in his UFC debut and he looked like he was in the Matrix. I believe he's a southpaw. The striking is very, very polished. The way he was cutting angles, he just went out there and put on a masterpiece of a performance against Sam Sicilia. And then he goes into his next fight against Rick Glenn, where he was a big, big time favorite. And, you know, he was cutting corners, like I said. Oh, excuse me, this was the Sam Sicilia fight. He was cutting corners, throwing knees up the middle. The boxing looks to be so polished. He had a big mouth. He was talking all types of crap. I mean, this guy was the next dude to next big thing, you know. But then he went out there against Rick Glenn, and this is him after he took one of the worst beatings I've ever seen. It was disgusting, and it was the worst type of beating you could have took because not only did he take a loss there, but you know, Rick Glenn is not the type of guy that really goes out there and just finishes you with his hands. He just put a pace on him, and just once he hurt him on the feet, you know, it was bad for him. He was on the mat. He was just taking a beating for 15 minutes straight. You know, the fight was never stopped. And honestly, it probably should have been stopped, in my opinion. I remember watching that fight just feeling so bad for Tucker out there. And, you know, he had to take a long layoff, you know, off after that beating, almost 2 years. And then Tucker came back to the fight game, and he pulled off the rear naked choke against the tall Korean fighter and Seung Wei Choi. And that was a fight that, you know, although he pulled off the finish, didn't look overly impressive in the beginning parts of that fight. You know, he did still hang strong and pull off the finish, like I said, but I wasn't overly impressed. I didn't see the same fighter that a lot of us thought we were going to see, like in that Sam Sicilia fight. At least that's how I feel about it. I still think that he's a very, very skilled fighter, but I think this guy, Justin Jaynes, is I think this guy is an underrated, tough dude. 16-4. We see that he has power in his hands. That, you know, the striking's there. He could grapple too. He's strong in the clinch, but he's the type of dude that's not afraid, man. He's gonna walk forward and he's gonna try to take your head off. You know, that's an X factor, man. When you got a fighter like that, that's you know, that's a dangerous type of fighter. Training over there at Extreme Couture, getting that top notch striking in on a 5-fight win streak, and he's a dog going into this fight. He's a dog, man. Justin Jaynes plus 130 right now. Gavin Tucker minus 150. I'm going with the dog. I'm taking Justin Jaynes. I think this fight is should be a lot closer to a pick'em. And I don't know, man. I just have you see Justin Jaynes here. This was after he pulled off the knockout against Frank Camacho. I just could see him hurting Gavin Tucker early and maybe putting him away or hurting him. And maybe we see something similar to what we saw in that Rick Glenn versus Gavin Tucker fight. You know, once he's hurt, maybe he holds on, but he's not the same type of fighter. He's hurt and he's not going to be able to do much. So, or we see this fighter that goes out there and just is a little bit more technical than Justin on the feet and can cut those corners and maybe outpoint him. But I'm going with the dog. I'm going with the dog, man. And Justin Jaynes. All right, we got Andrew Sanchez taking on Wellington Turman. This guy, Turman, the prodigy. It might be a fitting name, and this guy's young, and he's been looking really good. Coming off a big win against a guy that was supposed to be fighting this past Saturday, and we didn't get to see that fight, unfortunately. He's only 24 years old, and that was against Marcus Perez. A lot of people were on Marcus Perez there, and Turman stepped up and put his name in the map. Only loss as of recently was that split decision loss to Carl Robertson, very talented fighter. And again, Turman is a very young gun, man, this guy. And you're going to see a guy like this, 24 years old, you're going to see him start to really you know, elevate his game every time he steps in there. You know, looks to be in great, phenomenal shape too. Andrew Sanchez, on the other hand, this is a guy that has very decorated wrestling. You know, that's what he is, man. He's a wrestler that's worked on his boxing, but he's a very powerful wrestler. He can rip you down to the mat in those early rounds. Seems to have problems with his cardio. You know, I remember one fight, it was, I guess you can't really blame him in that one fight. Do you guys remember that fight against Ryan Jaynes, where he basically threw everything but the kitchen sink at Ryan Jaynes, couldn't put him away, and then Jaynes ended up hanging in there and ended up getting the finish himself. That was a crazy fight. You know, he's also taken out Marcus Perez, you know, took out Marc-Andre Barrett, who's a very talented fighter, and then his only loss was to Marvin Vettori. Marvin Vettori, we've talked about him, and that guy is potentially a future title challenger, so very skilled fighter. And no real shame in that loss. I think this is a solid matchup for Sanchez. If he can go out there and take out Wellington Turman, I think that would be a big thing for him. But you know what? I don't know if I see him doing it. I like the wrestling that he brings, you know, inside the octagon, and he's worked on his striking as well. But let's see, he's done some head kicking, mixing up his head kick and his takedowns. He's a skilled dude, man. Very tough wrestler. I think this is Wellington Turman's fight, though, if you ask me. You see Turman, man, working the hands here. I just feel more comfortable taking Turman. I think Turman is a guy that won't gas out, as I seen Sanchez do. You know, if Sanchez can't get those takedowns, he's going to get tired in there. His hands are kind of slow anyway, too. You know, Sanchez's hands are a little bit slower than Turman's, in my opinion. And let's see how these guys match up here. As far as size and everything goes, you know, height pretty much, you know, the same. You know, Sanchez will have that reach advantage, which he does have over a lot of guys in the division. He has a nice reach advantage over a lot of these guys, but I'm going with Turman to win the fight. I've seen some things from Sanchez that I don't like in there, and that being that he gets a little sloppy and tired in the later rounds. I think Turman will be in there fighting for 15 minutes, so I'm taking Turman to win the fight. All right. This is a solid fight here too, man. Nasrat taking on Alex Munoz. Nasrat, he's coming off a tough loss, right? You take a look at these guys here. Nasrat still only 24 years old, creeping up on 25. No reach over here on Alex Munoz, but it's pretty much the same from what I've seen. Training over at Team Alpha Male, TriStar Gym for Nasrat, two of the top gyms. Nasrat coming off that tough loss against Drew Dober, and since then, man, Drew Dober has really put himself on the map with some big victories. You know, everyone was so high on Nasrat going into that fight. He was almost like a 3-1 favorite, which I thought was ridiculous. I said it, man, run the tape back. I thought that fight was extremely close. Drew Dober is very dangerous. I've been high on Drew Dober way before the recent hype train has begun. So shout out to Drew Dober. Made some money on him as of recently too. So, you know, no real shame in that fight. Nasrat did the same thing that he always does. He went out there and he brought the fight. Drew Dober is just a very skilled Muay Thai fighter, and he caught him and he hurt him and he finished him. So no real shame in that. I think, you know, that was what, back in January. So he's had about 8 months to recover from that finish, and I think the brain should be well rested. And Nasrat is a solid fighter, man. Kind of reminds me of a little Kelvin Gastelum, very well-rounded, pushes the pace, and he's taking on the undefeated fighter and Alex Munoz. Munoz is a very tough fighter. We saw him on Dana White's the Contender Series show where he really spoiled the party, taking out you know, the guy that a lot of us were all rooting for, man. The guy in the, what's his name? He's missing half of his arm. Very tough dude. I don't know why his name's slipping my mind right now. You know, he's fought over in World Series of Fighting for a long time. Nick Newell, a very tough fighter, man. A guy that's really, just to touch upon Nick Newell real quick. You know, for those of you guys that aren't familiar with him, I know a lot of you guys are, but you know, he's missing, you know, his limb over there, his forearm and his whole and a hand and all that stuff. Nick Newell is a very tough fighter, man. He's really made it work for him. He's went out there and he's taken out a lot of guys. So he's a very tough customer. That's a valid win right there. Went out there, got another win against Troy Lamson. Munoz, what Munoz brings to the table, Alexander Munoz, is, you know, in my opinion, more of a grappling-based fighter, a typical Team Alpha Male type fighter, has the wrestling background. He's going to push the pace on you. He's going to, you know, try to work his ground and pound. He's also trying to groom his striking too. You know, he has power in the hands. You know, the boxing's coming around. But a typical alpha male type of fighter, man. This guy wants to get a hold of you and just bring the fight, you know what I mean? Try to get takedowns, work the ground and pound, you know, try to bully you, try to walk you down. And he's a very skilled fighter. He really is. He's a skilled fighter, man. Undefeated, you know, but he only has 6 fights, but he's been going out there handling business. Nasrat, though, in my opinion, it could be a bad matchup for him. Nasrat can grapple as well. He'll stuff the takedowns, and then Nasrat has some nasty striking. I edged Nasrat to win this fight. I'm picking Nasrat to win this fight. Just about to be 25 years old. This guy's going to start you know, reaching the peak, you know, right around 28, 29 years old. And he's creeping up to that. He's going to be a better fighter every time we see him in there. And I like Nasrat. He's a very skilled fighter. And, you know, he's going to be more motivated right now than ever, right? Coming off that loss, you know, he was extremely motivated. He was probably training like crazy for this fight. And he knows that Alex Munoz is a tough customer. I got Nasrat to win the fight. He's right around minus 240. Line's a little high, right? You know, the line was high on him last time too, and the party got spoiled. I don't know if Munoz is the guy to do it though, but he is a tough customer, so be careful there. Now this next fight, I'm excited for. I'm a big fan of this guy's. I don't know if you guys are a big fan of his as well, but I like Tim Means. I've been watching Tim Means for a long time. This guy always brings the fight. You know, he has some mental lapses in there at times. I think that's really been his downfall, because just from a pure skill standpoint, Tim Means is so fluid on the feet. And even the fights that he's losing, man, he's usually out, you know, outworking these guys. He's out, you know, he's styling them on the feet, man. He's about to get the finish himself, and then he gets caught or he makes a stupid mistake. And especially as of recently, you take a look at Tim Means here. You know, if he didn't make that mistake against Daniel Rodriguez, you know, he got caught in that guillotine. He was whooping up Rodriguez. You know, he got stuck his head in there and got choked out. Whooped up on Alves. The Nico Price fight, he was walking Nico Price down, man. He was whooping him up. And he was getting way too cocky in there. Nico Price is not the guy you want to do that against. Nico Price can stop the fight at any time, and that's what Nico did. You know, if it wasn't for those 2 mistakes, you'd be talking about a 4-fight winning streak. And then the Bilal and Sergio fight were extremely close. You know, this guy, it sucks because a couple small little mistakes that he makes, man, this guy could be, you know, running right now on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, a 7-fight win streak. But it's the fight game, and that's, you know, I might be speaking out of terms here. You know, he's far from on a 7-fight win streak, but I'm telling you, it was this close to happening if you really dissect the fights that he was in. And the point being that is he's a very skilled fighter. Don't let this resume, you know, make you think that this guy's a bum or whatnot. You know, if Tim Means shows up and he's disciplined and he's calm in there, he'll style on your opponent, or the opponent that you have money on if you're betting against him. You saw him. This is when he broke his ankle, I think, after he got knocked out in the Nico Price fight. And that was a tough one. Nico Price, Tim Means, the Dirty Bird. This is a guy that's been locked up, man. This guy, you know, he's had some big time lows in his life, and some big highs, some big UFC victories. And I'm a fan of Tim Means. I'm really a fan of his. He has a very tough opponent here in Laureano Staropoli. This guy is a very skilled fighter on the feet. That's why I think this fight is going to play out very well. I think stylistically, I think this is going to be a very entertaining fight as long as it takes place in the feet. 2 very skilled strikers. Laureano is a guy that has came through for me back in the day, man. I don't forget those things. You know, he's put some money in my pocket, and that was the Thiago Alves fight. I was big on him there. He came through in a big way. Coming off a loss to Muslim Salikov. Muslim Salikov has shown that this guy, you know, Muslim is a very skilled fighter, so no real shame in that loss. But now he's in there with Tim Means, a very skilled fighter as well. Take a look how these guys match up, because Tim Means, man, this guy has a long frame and excellent reach advantage against most opponents. And he's going to have one here, a 4.5-inch reach advantage over Laureano. 36 years old, so, you know, he's getting up there in age, but, you know, don't get it twisted. Tim Means he's still, you know, he's not too old, right? 36 years old. He's still hanging on, man. This guy's going to bring it. And I've been back and forth on who I want to take here. I think I'm going to take Tim Means. I think I'm going to settle in with the Tim Means pick here. And I think that if he could be patient in there, not make any stupid mistakes, I think that he's going to outpoint Laureano on the feet. But if he makes one mistake, I think Laureano can capitalize. He can knock him out. He could, he can pull this fight off in a couple different ways. And, yeah, Laureano, man, he's sharp on the feet, this guy, the Argentinian. I'm going with Tim, the Dirty Bird Means. How about that? Close fight, though. Very close fight. I like Laureano as well, man. All right. Let's see what we got next. Excuse me over here. Getting trapped up into the Tapology mess. All right, up next, it's an excellent fight, man, taking place in the lightweight division. 2 very solid fighters, Scott Holtzman and Beneil Dariush, 2 guys that have came through for me a lot of times. Now they're squaring off against each other. Scott Holtzman is a guy that I think he's been under the radar. This guy is a very talented fighter. He's 36 years old, about to be 37, but still always steps into the octagon in phenomenal shape. You see, he's going to be stepping in with a 3-inch reach disadvantage. But that's not really his game. You know, he's not there to sit on the outside and try to point fight with you, man. He's there to try to get a hold of you, mix in some takedowns, hit you with power shots, you know, try to cut the cage off, work the body. And Beneil Dariush is a guy that likes to use his footwork, whip the leg kick to the body, whip not leg kicks. Yeah, well, leg kick to the body. He'll also work in his own leg kicks against you too. And Beneil Dariush, a very talented grappler. I don't think some people realize how talented of a grappler he is at points in time, because his striking has came a long way too. Coming off a very entertaining fight, and I had a play on him, and he came through in a big way against Drakkar Klose. I was very happy to see that. And that fight was balls to the wall, man. Klose brought that fight, and Beneil Dariush ended up, finishing him as he was charging him. What a fight that was. Take a little look at that here, man. Beneil Dariush hurt him bad. The mouthpiece falling out of his mouth. That was a hell of a fight. If you guys didn't see it, go run the tape back on that. Scott Holtzman, like I said, always in phenomenal shape, man. Has some very powerful wrestling and grappling. Also carries power in the hands. He's been working on his Muay Thai and his striking for some years. And this is a solid fight, man. This is a solid fight. Been back and forth on this selection here. And of course, you guys know I got to settle in with Beneil Dariush. The guy's just, he's so skilled in there. He's so poised, and he's so well-rounded with the grappling. If Scott Holtzman tries to push the pace and cut the cage off and tries to get in under those legs and tries to secure some takedowns, it could be bad for him. Beneil Dariush can end up pulling off a submission. Dariush can hurt him on the way in. If Holtzman can avoid all that type of stuff, Holtzman may be able to push the pace on Beneil if they get tired in there. Maybe he squeaks out a decision, getting some takedowns and trying to cut the cage off if he really shows up. But I got Beneil Dariush to win the fight. That's the way I'm going with this. And Beneil Dariush, man, a very, very skilled opponent. And Beneil Dariush he's always on the verge, man, of reaching the pinnacle of the division. He's seems to string off a couple more victories, and he'll really be thrown to the top of the division. I mean, you check it out here. Look, he's on a 4-fight win streak, and that one setback against Alexander Hernandez, I think that he wins that fight 9 out of 10 times. You could put me on record saying that. He played that horribly. He got cocky in there. He underestimated Alexander Hernandez, and Alexander Hernandez got that ridiculous knockout. But I'm not too high on Alexander Hernandez's skill set, and I say he wins that fight 9 out of 10 times. And the Edson Barbosa loss, no shame in that. He should, if he pulls off a victory here, we're talking about 5 fights in a row, and he's going to start getting some big fights. All right. Beneil Dariush is my selection to win the fight. Got an interesting matchup here, taking place in the bantamweight division. Yana Kunitskaya taking on Julija Stoliarenko. And the Eastern European fighter fighting out of Lithuania. And you guys know the deal with Yana. Yana's she's really a skilled fighter. Besides her one setback that she had against Chris Cyborg, she is coming off a loss too against Aspen Ladd. But besides that, she won those 2 fights against Marianne Renaud and Lena Landsberg, where she looked pretty good on both those fights. She really put it on both those fighters and showed that she has some serious skills behind her. The Tanya Evinger fight, that was way back in 2017, but that was a bad look. I'm not that high in Tanya, even though she's a crafty veteran that's been around the game for so long. But when Yana puts it together, I really do think that she has a lot of potential. And take a look at her over here training. This is over at American Top Team, Coconut Creek. I told you guys before, but I drive down that street right over there a lot. So she's getting it in with some of the best over at Top Team. I think that we'll see her skills continue to grow right before our eyes. 30 years old, foxy. I take a look at the line on this fight. Yeah, she's a -235 favorite. Might be a little bit high. Take a look at her opponent. 9-3-1. And Invicta veteran coming off a split decision victory. And a lot of armbar victories. She has the submission skills. A lot of armbar victories here. Saw her on the Ultimate Fighter as well. That's right. She lost to Pani Kianzad, who's been looking pretty good, huh, Pani? And I'm going to go Yana here. I like Yana to win the fight. I don't like where the line's at, though. With these types of matchups, I think they could play out close. And I don't like her at almost a 2.5 to 1 favorite. Excuse me. And I'm going to pick her to win the fight, but I don't really like where the line's at. But you know how women's MMA is, man. It's unpredictable. Sometimes you watch a women's mixed martial arts fight and you're like, oh, this was so easy. You know the better fighter is going to win. You know, you don't have to worry about that knockout happening. Then you see some of these women's fights that play out so closely, right? They always play out so closely, even when you feel like one fighter is so much better. You know, they're in there just pitter-patter and back and forth, and they a lot of them go to split decisions. And, you know, I don't know. I'll take Yana to win the fight, though. This next fight has fireworks written all over it. Darren Stewart. It's funny, I was just actually chopping it up with Darren Stewart, a little bit of bickering back and forth over there on Instagram. He was throwing shade at Edmund Shabazi. Not really, I guess, you know, just calling for maybe a rematch, thinking he won that fight. I thought Edmund, you know, did enough to win that fight, but Edmund Shabazi, don't get me started on Edmund. He dropped the ball in a big way, so maybe Darren Stewart knew what he was talking about. Maybe Darren goes out there and wins the rematch. Maybe he'll go out there and look like Derek Brunson, you know. But Edmund's young. He has a lot to he's going to grow. He has a lot to prove still in the sport. This was the post here. I don't know if you guys could see that, but let's see. Here I was saying a little something, and we went back and forth a little bit, but it was all respect. And, you know, I thanked him for the money he put in my pocket against Darren Wynn. I had Darren Stewart in that fight, and he was a dog. So, you know, I've been fading Darren Wynn for quite some time, and it's really paid off. But, you know, Darren Stewart, man, this guy is a tough customer. He's tough striking. He's working on the grappling. He's working on his cardio and his scrambling and whatnot. And as long as he polishes that up, you know, on the feet, he can knock anybody out. He is a true threat on the feet with some serious power, this guy. You know, and then his opponent also brings that same skill set to the table, man. Maki, Pitolo, coconut bombs. We saw him make his debut on Dana White's Contender Series, and he went out there and really came out, you know, put a bang, you know. He exploded onto the scene with that knockout finish. You know, then his UFC debut, man, it was really not that not that impressive of a performance. But then he bounced back with a solid victory after that. So you don't really know what you're getting with this guy as of right now. I need to see him out there more to really know what we're getting with this guy. You know, we're talking about the Justin Sumter victory that he had. I'm like, dude, this guy's going to be a stud. Goes out there, loses to Kalen Potter, the very old, crafty, jiu-jitsu-based fighter. I'm like, wow, I mean, you can't go out there and lose a fight like that. You should have went out there and knocked out Kalen. But then he bounces back and he knocks out Charles Byrd. So it's like, you know, this is a perfect matchup to really see where he's at now against Darren Stewart. If he goes out there and takes out Darren Stewart, then we know he's for real. You know, this guy's a true threat. Darren Stewart, though, I like Darren here. I'm taking Darren Stewart because I think this fight's going to play out in the feet, and I'll take Darren Stewart and you know, a brawling type kickboxing match inside the octagon, almost against, you know, a lot of guys in the division. I really will. I feel comfortable taking him against a lot of guys. You know, you want to pull the guns out and you want to shoot it out. You know, Darren Stewart's more than willing to participate in that type of fight, and a lot of times he's going to finish you and take you out, or he's going to hurt you. You know, you're not going to want to sit there and throw at him as much because he's hurting you. You know, we've seen that. We've seen him do that in a lot of fights. Darren Stewart, 11-5, coming off a tough loss to Bartosz Fabinski, the grappling-based opponent who was able to get some takedowns in that fight. That took place over in Cage Warriors. I guess the UFC let him do, you know, a little thing over there. But, you know, the split decision victory over Darren Wynn. Bavon Lewis, he showed up in that fight. He hurt Bavon Lewis. That's one of the fights I'm talking about. Bavon Lewis, everyone's so high on him. Bavon didn't want any of that smoke. He was scared, man. He was scared to engage. He was circling, so he felt that power. So, you know, if it wasn't for the one setback in the close fight against Edmund, you know, we're talking about a 5-fight winning streak going into that Bartos fight. You know, he's working on the grappling, and I don't think the grappling is going to be too much of an issue here against Maki. This is going to be a fight taking place on the feet. I'm taking Darren Stewart to win the fight. A shout out to you, Darren, man, too. Meant no disrespect in that exchange. If you're watching, maybe we'll try to get you on the show. I'll be reaching out to you. You know, I'm a fan of what you bring to the table. I think that you're the real deal, man. So nothing but respect over here from the teller. All right, now we got this fight I'm excited for. I'm a big fan of Chris Weidman's, and this is a big matchup for him here. You know, Chris Weidman only won one of his last 5 fights. It's been a tough road for Chris Weidman as of late. The game really caught up to him, man. He's only 36 years old. You know he has the wrestling abilities. He's serious with the grappling. He's a big middleweight fighter. In my opinion, he was one of the best middleweights to ever step in the octagon. You know, when he went out there and he took out Anderson Silva, you know, that fight right there, when I have the studio lined up, I'll put it to you like this. When I have the studio lined up, when it's all setting up, like I told you guys, the studio will be coming together towards the end of the year or the beginning of next year. A beautiful studio. That's going to be a poster that's on the wall right there. You know, I had money on Chris Weidman in that fight, man. Big cash in front of the TV, a giant house party, and money out in a couple different ways. And Chris Weidman came through for me. And, you know, not only that, I was just a big fan of his, man. Up until that point, you know, he was undefeated, you know, coming through the ranks. I was always watching him. Just a lot of impressive victories, you know, knocking out guys like, what was that guy's name? The Filipino wrecking machine, you know, knocking him out with that stepping elbow. I think his name was Munoz, Mark Munoz. Just a lot of big wins that he had. He took out Damian Maia. He set the recipe how to beat Damian Maia, stuffing the takedowns, you know, working the striking. And I was always high on Chris Weidman, man. He went in there and he was the first guy to really dethrone Anderson Silva. Of course, Anderson Silva had a couple losses on his record way back in the day, but in the UFC, that was his first loss. And what a way to do it, man. He went out there and just knocked Silva out. That nasty left hook as he was trying to taunt him and mess around in there. And he won the rematch as well. He really showed to be just on another level than Anderson Silva, in my opinion. It was a different type of fighter. It was the newer generation, a guy that was strong in there, that could grapple, but was also working on the striking as well. And you know, he had that knockout power. And then you know, after that victory of Anderson Silva, you know, beat him again. Then he went out there, took out Lyoto Machida, Vitor Belfort. He was kind of doing something that we saw John Jones do, take out a lot of these older guys with big names and kind of padding the record a little bit. But then he, you know, was winning that Luke Rockhold fight, made one stupid mistake, and that's when Luke Rockhold was a whole different type of fighter. You know, interesting thing what happened with his career. The Yoel Romero fight, he's winning the fight, makes one brutal mistake, gets hit with the flying knee. The Gegard Mousasi fight was a weird one, but that was a really weird fight. A little bit of controversy there, but he ended up losing that fight. I believe he was kind of hit with some illegal knees too. They didn't have the tape to run back. It was weird how that fight played out. Went in there, dragged Kelvin Gastelum to deep waters in that fight, pulled off the arm triangle choke. That was very impressive. And, you know, I bring up that fight too because that's going to correlate to this fight here in a second. I'll tell you why. The Jacare Souza fight, he was winning. Seems like he just kind of dazes out there, man. He makes one little mistake and he gets finished. You know, the chin has been hurt, man. You know, the Dominic Reyes knockout was disgusting. Shouldn't even be fighting over at light heavyweight, man. He doesn't need to be doing that. He was outgunned there. And now I tell you how the Kelvin Gastelum fight correlates to the Omari Akhmedov fight. Omari Akhmedov is a very talented fighter, very well-rounded, heavy hands, can also grapple too. But I think that he has problems with his cardio. And if Chris Weidman could drag this fight into the deep waters, I could see, you know, this being a tough fight for Omari. But, you know, when the fight starts off, I think Omari might have the edge with the striking, working the leg kicks. You know, he's a very muscle-bound guy, good takedown defense. I don't know if Weidman can go out there and get those takedowns right away. I think he's going to have to get him tired and then try to wear on him. This is a tough fight for me to pick because I really, really want Chris Weidman to win this fight. But my gut tells me Omari Akhmedov is going to do enough to win it. And I think Omari Akhmedov can also get a knockout here. You know, I really think that he could. I'm going to pick Omari Akhmedov to win the fight. Take a look at the line. Chris Weidman, slight favorite. Basically, a pick him here. And Chris Weidman, man, I'm rooting for you, bro. I just, you know, when it comes to making my picks, it's strictly business, and I gotta do you guys, you know, I gotta do you guys, you know, the right way. I can't be picking a guy who I think's gonna lose the fight, and I think that Omari Akhmedov, I edge him to win this fight. I think he has more ways to do it. You know, coming off of some solid victories too, man. Look at these. Ian Heinisch, Zach Cummings, Tim Bosch. He went to a draw with Marvin Vettori. That was a very close fight, very entertaining fight. Took out Abdul Razak Al Hassan. He's battle tested. And Chris Weidman, he's been through so many wars, and I can't pick you here, Chris. But I think that it is a close fight, and I think there's a possibility that you do win the fight. And I'm rooting for Chris Weidman all day in this fight. All right, we made it to the main event. This is the fight, man. Like I said, I was calling for this fight. Alexey Oleinik, man, came on MMA Live Discussion episode 2. Guy's a true veteran of the game. One of the most skilled grapplers that we've ever seen participate in the heavyweight division and all of MMA. Derrick Lewis, a very entertaining fighter that's always in it. Can knock you out at any given time in the fight. A fighter that's very tricky too. We've seen him seen him have problems with his cardio. We've seen him get tired in there, get taken down, but he has so much heart. He gets back up to the feet and he still throws bombs. He can knock you out at any given time. I mean, you want to see how many comeback victories Derrick Lewis has, where he was down and out and still came back and knocked out his opponent? Take a look at this. All right. The Alexander Volkov fight, down and out, getting destroyed, gets the victory with only 11 seconds left in the fight. The Marcin Tybura fight, he was losing that fight, pulls off the victory in the 3rd round. The Shamil Abdurakhimov fight in the 4th round, that was a 5-round main event fight too. He was losing that fight, man. Shamil mounted him, everything was, controlling him, all that. Derrick Lewis gets back up to his feet, pulls off the knockout. The reason why I bring all this up is because, the recipe for Alexey to win, in my opinion, is he has to make this a grappling bout. He has to do something similarly to what we just saw happen in his last fight against Fabricio Verdum. Just get in Derrick Lewis's face, clinch, get him tired, get those takedowns. Maybe you pull off a sub, or you just drain Lewis, get him tired as hell, and then you can mount him, maybe even get a stoppage somehow, set up your submission later in the fight. But Lewis is going to be hanging on tough. He's going to try to get back up to his feet. He's going to try to knock you out, or he's going to just try to knock you out. He will try. Maybe he knocks him out right away. He might, if he gets a hold of Alexey early. We've seen Alexey Oleinik get knocked out early in fights before. Let's see. Yeah, the Walt Harris fight, he got knocked out early in the 1st round. The Alistair Overeem fight, he got finished early. So, if Derrick Lewis wins the fight, that's easily a way that it could happen, an early knockout. Look at the Mark Hunt fight. That was a fight where he was able to avoid getting knocked out, and he uses grappling to pull it off the submission. I think there's a potential for that to happen too. I'm going to pick Alexey Oleinik to win this fight. You see Alexey over here. This is when I first had to buzz my hair over here before I started practicing cutting my hair more. So excuse me. And I was pale. That's when that's when this whole pandemic really started to kick in, man. I wasn't even touching the weights. Had to buzz my hair. Looked like a cancer patient there. But let's see. Got Trump over here on the screen. But Alexey Oleinik, man, if you guys didn't see that episode, that was a great take. And he was down for the fight back then, and obviously he's down for it. He signed the contract. It's a perfect matchup for him, in my opinion. If he wins this fight, he's going to be pushing his way to the top of the division. Maybe a possible, title shot for him down the line. Maybe he has to win 2 more. We'll see about that. But Alexey Oleinik does have the potential to really do something here, in my opinion. The money's been coming in on Alexey Oleinik. You could have got him at plus 250, plus 220, and now the money is dropping in on him. So I don't know if that's because I've been saying a little something about him on the fight companions and whatnot, but Alexey Oleinik is a guy that can easily go out there and deliver. So there he is, man. What a warrior Alexey Oleinik is. That's going to be my pick, Alexey Oleinik. And hey, man, I appreciate all you guys that hung around all the way to the end of this this breakdown. I want to let you guys know I'm going to be putting out a lot of prediction videos out to you guys. I'm going to have the Dana White's Contender Series breakdown coming out to you guys here hopefully by tonight or tomorrow morning. I'm going to get that done here too. Then we got a Bellator card taking place this weekend as well. I'm going to have that put out to you guys as well. I'll be pumping out these breakdowns to you. MMA live discussion taking place Thursday. We'll see who we're going to have on the show. Hopefully it'll be Matt Frivola. I was talking to him. Maybe a couple other guys I was talking to. Maybe I'll get one of them on instead. We'll see how the schedules work for these guys. And then the Fight Companion will be taking place Saturday for the main card like always. Hope you guys join the show. Come join us. It's always a great time. Appreciate all you guys that have been joining us on the show, coming on the panel. And what else? I think that's just about it. If you guys got any questions about the fight card, let me know, man. Comment below. You could always reach me at on Instagram, MMAFortuneteller_, or you can catch me over on my email, MMAFortuneteller@gmail.com. And I do have a Twitter as well. Don't go on there so much, but if that's another way that you can get a hold of me, if that's all you have, the MMA Teller. Catch me on Twitter. And yeah, that's pretty much gonna wrap up the show, man. But you guys will be hearing from me here very briefly if you guys want to check out my Bellator breakdown or my Dana White's Contender Series breakdown. So we'll leave it at that, man. Signing out, the Teller.
The MMA Fortune Teller.
The Teller. The Teller. The Teller. The Teller. The Teller.